Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate is about to make an important decision about who leads the federal agency that oversees everything from the internet to TV to the radio. This vote is a choice. We can either give our stamp of approval on the FCC's direction under the leadership of Chairman Pai, or we can decide that his leadership has put the FCC on the wrong track and that it's time for someone else to take charge. Now, generally speaking, here's how I approach these kinds of things. There are three reasons why you might reject a nominee. If the person is corrupt, that's a non-starter. If the person is unqualified, also a non-starter, or on policy grounds. And even in the policy space, just disagreeing with someone can often boil down to the fact that there's a president from another party. That's not sufficient to vote no. Look, Chairman Pai is someone I know. He is skillful. He is a decent human being. He's very smart. He's qualified. And when we disagree, which is often, we can do it without ruining our ability to work together in the following day, the following issue. And this is no small thing in today's political climate. And so it's important that if we're ever going to get something done, that we're able to disagree and then find common ground afterwards. So I do like Chairman Pai as a person. I think he's ethical. I think he's capable. But he's just so wrong on policy. And for me, that means he's not the right leader for the FCC. And I want to highlight 4 of the concerns that I have. First, the FCC really is trying to end the internet as we know it by getting rid of net neutrality. And if they succeed, your internet service provider will have the power to stop you from seeing certain kinds of content. They will be the ones that make decisions about what you can access online and how fast and how much you have to pay for it. Now, some people say, well, the companies aren't going to change the internet because it's not in their interest to change the internet, even if the law goes away. But think about this. Most often, these ISPs are publicly traded companies, and they're going to make decisions based on their own financial interests. That is actually not just an objective of theirs, it's their obligation. And so if there's an opportunity to change their business model for internet service, they are duty-bound to pursue it. They do not have any obligation to a free and open internet. They have an obligation to shareholders and to profits, and that's why net neutrality exists in the first place, because we should not leave it up to any company to decide whether or not they're going to charge people more to stream video, for example, or block certain content altogether. If we allow the FCC to end net neutrality, Americans across the country are going to find that the internet no longer works in the way that it should. And this has happened under Chair Pai's leadership. And it's not just bad policy in this space that he's pursuing. They've also had some serious process fouls. When Chairman Pai announced that the FCC was revisiting the rules, he made clear that the FCC was going to get rid of net neutrality regardless of what happened through the process. He said, and I quote, "This is a fight we intend to wage, and it is a fight we intend to win." Now, why is that a significant thing to say? This is a fight we intend to wage and a fight we intend to win. This is a quasi-judicial agency. They just opened up for public comment. There were 22 million members of the public who submitted public comments after the chairman of the commission has already announced that he's decided which way they're going to go. And I think that is antithetical to the governing statute, and it's antithetical to the basic premise that if you have an open comment period where an individual has an opportunity to express themselves, you got to listen to them. You don't say, "I've already decided," but you 22 million people, if you have an opinion, be happy to receive it and file it and do what I plan to do all along. This is the exact opposite of how this is supposed to work. The agency proposes the rule, the public weighs it, and then the agency considers the comments from the public in making the decision, but Chairman Pai turned it upside down. The FCC has tried to diminish the fact that so many people have tried to weigh in. About 96% of the roughly 22 million people who have weighed in favor of net neutrality. They're trying to lay the groundwork so that they can get rid of net neutrality, even though the vast majority of people are for it. And by doing that, the FCC is effectively saying that lobbyists and law firms matter more than regular citizens. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The FCC has also claimed a cyber attack kept people from being able to comment, but they have not been forthcoming about what exactly happened, and we're still working on, in our oversight role, figuring all of that out. Second area I'd like to address is media ownership. Local TV broadcasters are an essential part of every community. People know their local TV station, they trust it. There's a range of perspectives offered, and because the broadcasters are based in the community, they have relationships with their viewers that make their content better and more relevant. And so for decades, Congress and the FCC have taken steps to keep local broadcasting local because it benefits the public interest. These are the public airwaves. It's like fast food options across the country. You may not mind McDonald's once in a while, but you don't want that to be the only option in your hometown. You want something that captures the local culture in a community. And that's what local broadcasting does. It makes TV in Honolulu different than TV in Hartford or in Houston. But now the American tradition of local broadcasting is in real danger because the FCC is going to change the rules so that these stations can be bought up by a single company without any limits. And I have no doubt that this would create a world of sort of nationalized content distributed to each of these local companies, with consumers having to watch whatever is distributed to them by their national headquarters. This is no longer local news, and this is not the broadcast media that Americans deserve. The third area I want to talk about is broadband access. Right now, Americans have widely different levels of internet speed, basically based on where they live. In some places, you have great broadband access, no trouble streaming video, accessing government services online, downloading, uploading. But in rural and tribal communities, they're very, very far behind. As the FCC noticed, 39% of rural America and 41% of those on tribal land lack access to advanced broadband. Even if they have cell phones with internet access, a mobile network will typically offer slower speeds than fixed broadband. So they can't go online and do the things that we can in Washington, D.C., or many other cities across the country. And so everybody on a bipartisan basis understands that this needs to change. High-speed broadband is the cornerstone to economic development, public safety, and quality of life in every community, no matter how many people live in your community. That's why the FCC has historically worked so that every home, school, and business has had adequate access to the internet, because that's what it will take to unlock the innovation and potential for all Americans. The FCC has worked on this issue by setting the bar for what it will take to connect more Americans to the internet. There's already a threshold in place that says this is what high-speed internet access is, so that we know who has it and who doesn't. But instead of actually working to get more people broadband, the FCC is working to change the definition of broadband so it looks like they've gotten people more broadband. That way they can say more Americans are covered even if they have internet service that does not meet their needs. In other words, they're not actually solving the problem. They're just literally redefining what it means to have access. Rather than give people access, they're papering over the problem that they're not solving. This is a real issue, and it's something that the Commerce Committee members have worked on a bipartisan basis. The way to get more people broadband access is to get more people broadband access. It's not to change the rules and to change the metrics so that you can come back to the Congress and say, look, we just achieved more access by allowing these companies to claim that people are covered who are not. The fourth and final concern I want to raise is a little more sensitive because, as I said, I like Chairman Pai. I respect Chairman Pai. But he made some comments during his confirmation hearing that worried me. I asked if he agreed with the president's comments calling the media the enemy of the state. He would not give a direct answer. Now, I understand that Mr. Pai is a Republican. That's not the problem. I understand Republicans will be appointed to a Republican administration. I'm the former Democratic Party chairman of the state of Hawaii, so I understand party loyalty. I respect party loyalty. But we have a president and a White House that are pushing to blur the legal, moral, and ethical boundaries in our nation's capital. This is not the time to get cute when we ask a question about the rule of law. This is not the time to finesse an answer. The only acceptable answer is this: I will not let anyone interfere with my work, whether it is the president or anyone else, and the media is not the enemy of the state. Mr. Pai did not take that opportunity. This was one of a few opportunities Mr. Pai had to be unequivocal. The senior senator from New Mexico, if I remember correctly, and other members of the panel sort of gave him, a second and third bite at the apple so he could get it right. It was an easy one to get right. I understand it's politically complicated, but look, sometimes you have to set aside the politics and just say what is right and do what is right. Now, my instinct is that he will not use the FCC to do anything that crosses any ethical boundaries that I'm worried about. But the fact that he won't say so leaves the opening that should not be there. The president has tweeted about media companies that give him bad coverage. He consistently refers to the media as fake news media and garbage media and makes unsubstantiated claims about various networks and newspapers and threatens to come after them. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility that this goes beyond some partisan talking point from the Democrats in the Commerce Committee and into a real crisis. And I just want to hear from Mr. Pai. He will be confirmed on Monday. But I want to hear from Mr. Pai that he does not believe the media is the enemy of the state, and he will not allow any interference from the White House. I'd like to end by bringing this back to the American people. This vote is our chance to stand up for them. There will not be a vote on net neutrality on the floor in the next weeks or months, but they deserve to keep their faith in local broadcasting. They deserve a free and open internet, and they deserve to have adequate access to the internet no matter where they live. And that's why I have to vote no on this nominee. I admire Chairman Pai. I like him as a person, but he's the wrong leader for the FCC. And I urge my colleagues to join me and vote no on his nomination.